Hey there, K-Korner fam! Welcome back to our channel, where we dive into the most intriguing and sometimes unbelievable stories from all corners of life. I'm your host, Crown, and today we've got a lineup of tales that are sure to make you think, laugh, and maybe even cheer. From a blind girl's sharp intuition to law enforcement testing adventures, each story is a unique glimpse into the human experience. So grab your favorite snack, get comfy, and let's get right into these incredible stories. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's roll. I'm a blind girl, but that doesn't mean I can't see through people's true intentions. I may not be able to see with my own eyes, but my other senses are heightened, and my intuition is spot on. That's why I knew from the moment I met Karen that she was bad news. Karen and her friends were the quintessential popular girls in high school. They dressed in the latest fashion trends, wore fancy accessories from what I heard of course, and always had their hair and makeup perfectly done. They were the envy of many of the other students, especially the girls. But with their popularity came a sense of entitlement. They walked around the school as if they owned it, pushing past other students without so much as an apology. They would loudly talk about their latest shopping sprees or party plans, making sure everyone could hear. When they passed by me, I could hear their whispers and giggles. They would make snide comments about my blindness, as if it was something to be ridiculed. I could feel their disdain for me, even if they never outright said anything hurtful. It was clear that Karen and her friends thought they were better than everyone else. They had a clique mentality, and if you weren't in their group, you were an outsider. It was a toxic environment, and I often felt like I didn't belong. That's why it was especially hurtful when I overheard Karen bragging about scamming a blind woman. It confirmed what I had suspected all along. That Karen and her friends had no regard for anyone outside their circle. It was a wake-up call for me, and I knew I had to do something about it. One day, I overheard Karen bragging to her friends about how she swindled a blind woman out of her money. She had convinced the woman to buy a product that didn't work and refused to refund her money when the woman realized she had been scammed. And that was the last straw for me. I decided to take matters into my own hands and get revenge. I reached out to a friend who was a hacker and asked for their help. Together, we hatched a plan to expose Karen's true character to the entire school. First, we created a fake social media profile and added Karen as a friend. We then sent her a message from the profile, pretending to be a wealthy and influential person who was interested in becoming friends with her. Karen was thrilled at the prospect of gaining a new friend in a high place and eagerly agreed to meet up. When Karen arrived at the meeting spot, she was surprised to find herself face to face with me. I had a recording device with me and I played back some of the conversation where she was bragging about scamming the blind woman. Karen was stunned, and she tried to deny it, but the evidence was undeniable. And that's when Karen lost her temper and attempted to attack me. But my friend, who had been hiding nearby, intervened and pulled Karen away from me. I was relieved but also surprised at my friend's sudden appearance. "Are you okay?" my friend asked, sounding concerned. "I'm fine," I said, still in shock from the attack. My friend then turned to Karen and confronted her. "What's wrong with you? Attacking a blind girl? You should be ashamed of yourself." Karen tried to protest, but my friend wouldn't hear it. "You're lucky I don't report you to the principal for assault. This is unacceptable behavior." The incident was witnessed by several bystanders and Karen was promptly suspended from school. The news of her behavior quickly spread and she was shunned by her former friends. I may not have been able to see her face, but I could sense the shame and embarrassment radiating off of her. In the days that followed, I received messages of support from many of my classmates. They were impressed with how I had stood up to Karen and exposed her true character. Even some of Karen's former friends reached out to apologize and distanced themselves from her. As for me, I was just glad that justice had been served. I may have been blind, but I was able to use my other senses to outsmart Karen. And I was grateful to have a friend who had my back when things got physical. It just goes to show that you should never underestimate someone based on their physical abilities or disabilities, and that true friends are always there to support you when you need them. I work for a law enforcement agency in a pretty wealthy area, and people can be a bit entitled, but not all. I have worked several jobs since I finished school, like dispatcher, records department, and finally moved into my current role, which is a hybrid of IT and equipment. I do all the testing and issue reports on non-tactical/ballistic items that we use. My biggest task is the vehicles themselves. Now, we currently are testing out back seats for the patrol cruisers. If you've ever seen one, they are generally just plastic and very uncomfortable. They aren't meant for comfort, but problems do arise due to how slippery they are. The primary goal is easy to clean and nearly impossible for someone to try and conceal an item in the crease of cushions on a normal car. So a new vendor approached us with a new material that goes in the back. It's non-stick and has some cushioning underneath. So they install it on one vehicle, and I call up the officer who handles tactical/ballistic equipment purchases to schedule testing the vehicle out. Per our city's guidelines, we have to test it for a minimum of 12 hours in addition to the testing that the manufacturer has done. So I arranged with the officer to spend part of 2 days driving around, alternating with me sitting in the back, handcuffed, and also him in the back, not handcuffed. I was simulating the role of a detained person in custody, while the officer would be playing the role of a witness who is being transported. Also, we will get in trouble legally if I cuffed him for the simulation, so the problem was solved. The first day went okay, but the complaint we both had was that it's a bit unrealistic to be sitting in the back of a car for more than 30 to 45 minutes, as it virtually never happens. Also, it's basically a yoga mat you're sitting on, but denser material, so not much padding. So on a second day, I brought a pillow from home for my back, fused vertebrae. When we were just about finished with the second day, it was around lunch, but we decided to get lunch. The officer parks in front of a restaurant and lets me out and uncuffs me. I said, "Thank you, Jeeves. Can you please get the door? I will be off." Unfortunately, a woman heard this and thought I was ordering a cop around and treating him like a servant. She screamed at the top of her lungs that criminals like me don't get to order cops around, that I obviously must be a criminal. The officer tried to explain to her that I work with him and it was a joke, but nope, she's not buying that. Not even when I get out my ID and show her. Nope, she is convinced I'm a criminal. She calls 911 and demands that the chief come out and explain these shenanigans. Yeah, not happening. The watch commander comes out, explains it, and scolds me and the other officer for making jokes while in an official capacity. The woman is absolutely incredulous that we weren't going to be arrested and terminated on the spot. So of course she smacks the watch commander and demands he do his job. So yeah, needless to say, someone got arrested. Fair warning, this one gets a touch violent. I'm in no way advocating violence or attempting to glorify violence, just trying to tell my story of an entitled mother who played a stupid game and won several stupid prizes. So backstory, I'm in the Navy and a few years ago I was stationed on a ship. As part of my duties, I would occasionally have to stand as an armed guard at the entrance to the piers where the ships were docked. One Saturday evening, I'm standing guard and for the first few hours, everything is going fine. A few pizza delivery drivers, a few totally not drunk sailors, yes, it's a stereotype, but it's true. Well, it's a typical evening. And then my quiet watch came to a screeching halt. The entitled mother came up to the gate and I asked to see her ID, and the following conversation ensued. For the sake of security, certain details are being left out. The entitled mother gives a very loud huff and pulls out her driver's license. "My son is on a ship." "Alright, ma'am, is he coming to get you?" "No." "Why?" "I can't let you onto the pier without proper identification or an escort." "But I showed you my license." "Ma'am, in order to come onto the pier by yourself, you'll need a military ID or a temporary pass. Since you don't have any of those, then you'll need your son to come down from the ship and escort you on board." While I was talking with the entitled mother, another person came up with her military ID in hand, and I attempted to let her through. Practically yelling, the entitled mother says, "I was here first, you brat." She didn't use brat, she said another strong word. "Ma'am, that is so uncalled for." "What are you gonna do about it, you jerk?" Again, she didn't use jerk, she used the World War II German soldier analog, starts with an N. I used every ounce of mental strength to not yell at her. "Ma'am, step away from the gate." "No, I'm going to see my son." And she proceeds to attempt to push past me. I pulled my can of OC spray off my belt, moved in front of her, and now forcefully commanded, "Ma'am, this is your last warning. Step away from the gate or you will be sprayed." For those of you who don't know what OC spray is, it's all your resin capsicum. Think of it as mace and pepper spray's evil cousin, and it's hurt a lot. Like 100,000 hypodermic needles full of burning molten salt being drilled into your eyes, and it doesn't stop for hours. The entitled mother makes one more step towards the gate. She says, "Screw you, slur." I spray the entitled mother right in the face, toss the can away and tackle her to the ground and handcuff her. All the while, she's yelling every obscenity in the book. She would have made a Civil War era sailor blush, threatening to sue. "I know your boss. I'll get the president to get you fired." Which, personally, I would have loved to have seen. Yada yada yada. Typical Karen threats with no effect. All while this was going on, the other guard who was with me had called for the watch supervisor, and the girl who I was going to let through had called the base police. A few minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up, one of which was a county sheriff, an ambulance, and a watch supervisor. The medics started treating her OC contamination, and when they cut the cuffs off, they were flex cuffs, she punched 2 of them and wiped OC onto the 3rd. The base cop ran over and cuffed her with real cuffs now. I recount the encounter to the sheriff and the watch supervisor. The other guard and the girl do the same, and the entitled mother was arrested for trespassing on government property twice, failure to follow the instructions of military police, resisting arrest, and assaulting an EMT thrice. The best part was her son's ship pulled into port 2 days later. For anybody who may think I used excessive force with the OC spray, I had 5 reasonable options to stop the entitled mother. Verbal commands usually works with about 80% of sane and even slightly drunk or high people. Not gonna work on determined or stupid people. Mock takedowns, hands-on physical maneuvers and joint holds. Unencumbered would have been the best option. But in 25 plus pounds of gear and having a sidearm on makes these themselves dangerous. Combined with OC or baton strikes makes these much more effective in gear. OC spray causes near instant reaction in 99% of people, with very rare severe reactions occurring in less than 1 in 50,000. Steel retractable baton. Well, it would have been effective, the baton was not necessary, plus well-placed strikes can easily break bone, and in a worst-case scenario for a body strike, cause a heart attack. 9mm sidearm. At no point during the encounter was a definition for deadly force authorization met, nor did I feel that my life, anybody else's life, or the docked ship's safety were threatened by the entitled mother's actions. Even if the entitled mother had pulled a knife, OC would be more than sufficient to disarm just about anybody. The full effects wear off in about 5 hours by themselves, and about an hour or 2 with medical care. This happened the day before yesterday. I was taking a shift at my local pizza place as a delivery driver. We don't have any designated parking spaces, so I typically pick one of the spots out in the main parking lot in front of the doors. Well, as I was pulling into the parking lot, I noticed some guy parked over the line in a space. Now, I personally hate people who park like that, too lazy to park right in the first place. Anyways, I noticed he was still in his car, probably looking at his phone. So I decided it's time for some payback. I have an '05 Mercury Sable, which is a pretty thin car, so I'm able to pull into the spot right next to this guy with enough space for me to get out on my side. And my car is mere inches from his driver's side door. There is no way he will be able to get out without hitting my car with his door. Especially since, from what I could tell, he was a really big guy, at least 200 pounds. By the time he realizes what's happened, I'm already out of my car and heading back into the pizza place. The dude slams on his horn and speeds out of the spot he was in, picking another spot about 3 or 4 spaces down. It was small but incredibly satisfying. No confrontation afterwards. I had picked up another delivery and was gone before anything else could happen. Guy, if you're reading this, park right next time. My husband, Tim, 34 male, and I, 33 female, have been married for 3 years. Tim has a daughter, Lucy, 13 female, from a one-night stand. Both Tim and Lucy's mother, Deborah, were teenagers when Lucy was born. Deborah wanted nothing to do with Lucy and disappeared, so Tim had full custody. I was raising Lucy as a single dad when we met. I've been in Lucy's life since she was 6 and consider her my own. A couple of years ago, Deborah suddenly appeared back in our lives and contacted Tim wanting to meet with Lucy. Deborah was a drug addict. I'm not sure if she still is, but I wouldn't be surprised. And generally not a great person for a kid to be around. But Tim would allow Lucy to see Deborah once in a while. Lucy seems like she's just going through the motions with finally having her mother in life. She doesn't particularly seem excited or upset, she just does as she's told. Deborah also has a boyfriend, Don. Recently, after Lucy came back home from dinner with Deborah and Don, she mentioned to Tim and I that she found Don very weird. He didn't explicitly say or do anything to Lucy, but she felt uncomfortable being around him. A few days ago, Tim unexpectedly had to go on a work trip to another country where he will be completely unavailable for 3 days. He won't have any type of service to communicate with us. That trip also happens to coincide at the same time as when Tim and Deborah agreed that Lucy can spend the night at Deborah's. So I was the one dropping Lucy off at Deborah's, and when we got there, we saw Don sitting on a front porch staring out at our car. I looked at Lucy seeing if she still wanted to even go in. And by the look on her face, I asked her if she wanted to go to get ice cream at Downtown Disney instead. We live near Disneyland. Disneytown is a shopping area right outside the park. She immediately said yes. So I got out of the car and told Deborah that Lucy doesn't want to do dinner anymore and that I'm taking her downtown Disney for ice cream. Deborah started screaming at me, saying that I'm a nobody trying to bribe her daughter with ice cream so she doesn't want to spend dinner with her own mother anymore. I told her Lucy doesn't want to go in and I won't force her. Deborah responded that Tim had agreed to Lucy spending the night at hers and the matter is between her and Tim. I shouldn't be involved or make decisions because I'm not Lucy's mother. That made me really mad, so I hopped back into my car and drove Lucy to Downtown Disney, and we actually ended up going to Disneyland as well for the rest of the day. Deborah has been spamming my phone calling me all sorts of names for not forcing Lucy to spend the night at hers, and Tim is still unavailable and can't be reached for a comment. I genuinely don't think I was being a jerk, but I need some second opinions. And now with some comments on the post. You're not a jerk. You listened to what your stepdaughter wanted to do. Hopefully, when you explain the full situation to Tim, he understands. I would ask Lucy to tell him why she didn't want to go inside. Then Tim can have a conversation with Deborah himself. He will need to be the one to have that chat with her. You did the right thing. Another commenter adds, not a jerk. Tim agreed she could spend time with Deborah, not Dawn. You're currently acting in place of the legal parent. Tim trusted you with his daughter. He agreed to one thing, a night between Deborah and Lucy. You were presented with another thing, time between Deborah, Dawn and Lucy. And Lucy had already stated that she's uncomfortable with Dawn. Mute her calls. Don't block so you have records. Talk to Tim when he's available. Third commenter goes with, you're not a jerk. You trusted your gut and protected the child. However, you handled this with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. My husband is currently redoing our roof after it failed in December following a heavy frost. It's taking a long time and as a result, he's been unable to go to work or help care for our 9-month-old, as stopping water running down the walls has been the priority. Edit to add, he decided he'd build dormers once the tiles and felt were off to avoid having to strip the roof ever again. This is what has taken a long time, as while he's been building the dormers, the roof has been exposed. It's been extremely difficult for me. I went to my workplace and explained the situation. They said I could bring my daughter while I was without support from my husband. I can't afford a nursery on my salary and my family lives far. I work in a museum of creative children's activities. All of January I worked on creating a big audiobook trail and baby sensory room for February half-term. I managed to install it a week early. Everyone was really happy. Then the day before I was due to be in 5 days to monitor the launch week of this trail, I received an email from the CEO, who is never on site, saying that I wasn't allowed to bring my daughter in anymore because it was inappropriate. I said okay, good luck finding someone to cover me. I took all my paid leave. I am now looking for freelance work delivering workshops so I can leave, while they scrambled to get someone to monitor the room. All my team have played along and have said, if you don't want a baby in the baby room, it's just not gonna get staffed. They lost 5 staff members last week because of poor management. It's not a large team either. And that's a wrap for today's episode at K-Korner. I hope these stories left you with something to ponder, or at least brought a smile to your face. It's amazing how life can surprise us, isn't it? If you've got a story of your own or thoughts on what you just heard, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Remember, this channel thrives on your support, so hit that like button, share with your friends, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. be sure to subscribe. Until next time, keep being awesome and stay tuned for more stories from the Crown Corner. Peace out.